A bright beam of light strikes the ground, shaking it. A little boy named Aladdin kneels on the floor, asking a giant, human-like creature for answers about himself. The creature responds that it can't provide answers but will grant him one wish instead, offering countless blessings if Aladdin makes that wish. Meanwhile, a young boy named Alibaba is collecting crops for his master. Some men question why he's working so hard. He tells them he's striving to achieve his dream of clearing the labyrinth. They laugh at him, insisting some dreams can't be realized. When he goes to load the cargo, he spots Aladdin munching on his boss's watermelons. Furious, he picks Aladdin up. His boss calls for him, asking if he's finished loading. Stuttering, Alibaba tries to keep his boss from checking, but the guard pushes him aside. The boss checks and finds Aladdin still chewing on the watermelons. Aladdin jumps on the man, playing around, but Alibaba quickly pulls him off. He apologizes, but his boss gets mad, kicks him, and says Alibaba will work for him without pay. Later that night, Alibaba gets hungry and reaches into his bag of apples, only to discover Aladdin has eaten all of them. Alibaba mumbles that if he can't clear a dungeon, he's in trouble. Aladdin asks what a dungeon is, and Alibaba explains that they are mysterious structures that started appearing 14 years ago. Anyone who clears a dungeon can claim a great treasure and wealth, he adds, mentioning the magical jinn vessels as the best finds. When Alibaba asks where to find a dungeon, Aladdin has already fallen asleep. The next morning, Alibaba kicks Aladdin awake as he heads out the door. Aladdin follows, asking again where to find a dungeon. Alibaba points out one in the middle of the city called Amen, the sixth labyrinth that appeared 10 years ago. Alibaba vows to clear it and other dungeons faster than anyone else to become the richest person in the world. They visit the market, and Aladdin asks if Alibaba needs money. Alibaba replies he needs a lot, and they discuss what they could buy. Aladdin collides with a young lady, causing her to fall. Alibaba apologizes and offers to help her with her load, but she declines. As she tries to leave, they notice she has chains around her legs and realize she's a slave. When she stumbles while trying to cover her chains, Aladdin plays his flute and the chains break. Everyone around is surprised and gathers to watch. Their boss shows up and threatens to make Alibaba a slave for not being able to pay him back. He hits and kicks the slaves to show how they treat them. Aladdin confronts him and asks him to stop, but the boss's guards seize them. Aladdin plays his flute again, and a giant hand emerges, knocking them all out. While hiding, Alibaba asks Aladdin about his flute. Aladdin explains it's a djinn he calls Ugo. Alibaba thinks about how the djinn can help him achieve his dream of clearing the dungeons. Alibaba's boss is with the city's leader, Lord Jamil. He asks about the incident at the market, but the boss claims it wasn't worth reporting. Alibaba treats Aladdin to some beautiful girls and asks him where he plans to go on his journey. Aladdin replies that he promised to help him find other djinn vessels, so he'll head to the dungeon. Alibaba is happy to hear this. He decides to get himself a beautiful girl, but she turns out to be nothing like what he expected. After they leave the pleasure house, his boss and the guard confront him about his debts, but he has no money. He promises he'll pay them back after he clears the dungeon. They all laugh at him. The boss gives him an ultimatum. He can either be arrested or work as a slave for him. The next day, his boss, Master Boudel, instructs him to deliver a carriage of grape wine from Lord Jamil to the lord of the neighboring city. They see a slave from the market locked in a cage with other slaves. Master Boudel tells him they are slaves for the mine. As they start their journey, Master Boudel talks about how a slave will always be a slave and can't achieve anything more. He asks Alibaba if he agrees, and Alibaba nods. Aladdin notices he's lying and tells him that if he keeps lying, no one will believe him. Suddenly, a large desert creature, known as the Desert Hyacinth, attacks them, causing their carriages to stop. A child falls into the hyacinth, and the slave from the market tries to save him, but they both fall. Alibaba is devastated. Master Boudel only cares about his grape wines and offers to pay the mother for her child. This disgusts Alibaba. He stands up and strikes Master Boudel hard, sending him crashing into the sand. Alibaba jumps into the hyacinth with a barrel of grape wine, trying to force its mouth open, but he's powerless. Aladdin plays his flute, and Ugo comes out to help. He saves the slave and the baby, but gets dragged into the desert hyacinth. Aladdin spreads out his turban, loads it with barrels of wine, and starts to fly toward Alibaba. Thinking he's about to die, Alibaba sees this and is surprised. Aladdin throws the wine at the hyacinth, which releases Ugo and Alibaba. As they fly off to start an adventure, Aladdin asks Alibaba to be his friend. They arrive at the dungeon entrance. Alibaba asks Aladdin if he wants to rethink his decision and turn back because people who enter the dungeon never return to the outside world. Aladdin pushes him, and they both fall into another dimension. Alibaba wakes up confused about where he is. He realizes he's in some flammable water and looks around for Aladdin. He finds Aladdin and pulls him out of the water just before it bursts into flames. Lord Jamil decides to enter the dungeon as well. His advisor tries to talk him out of it, but he's set on his decision. He mentions he's been waiting for the jinn to arrive to help him complete his mission. A giant rock rolls after Alibaba and Aladdin as they run for their lives. Hugo appears and saves them before the rock can crush them. Alibaba notices that Aladdin doesn't look too good. He asks what's wrong, and Aladdin says he's okay, just a little hungry, but his rumbling stomach shows he's really starving. Alibaba tries to cheer him up, promising to get food. He then looks down and realizes Aladdin is gone, seeing only a baby ant. He spots a giant green ant trying to swallow Aladdin. He rushes over and pulls Aladdin from its mouth. More giant ants come out of their nests and surround them. Realizing they are in an ant nest, Alibaba draws his sword and starts slicing through them like rotten fruit. The ants melt and combine into a massive monster that breathes fire. Aladdin plays his flute, and Ugo comes to their rescue. Ugo fights the monster, but it seems really strong. Ugo creates a fireball and smashes the monster into vapor, leaving a giant hole in the ground. Aladdin tells Alibaba that Ugo is strong and they'll make it through, just before he collapses. Alibaba gives Aladdin some water as he falls into a deep sleep. He wonders if it's tiring to play the flute as he picks it up. He blows into it, but no sound comes out. He thinks about telling Aladdin the real reason he entered the dungeon and getting to know more about him, asking why he's willing to do so much for him. Alibaba hears footsteps and decides to see who it is. He discovers it's Lord Jamil and a guard. He wonders what Lord Jamil is doing in the dungeon and if he's hunting them down. The slave girl from the market appears before him, and right behind her is Lord Jamil. He approaches Aladdin, who is still fast asleep, and calls him Magi. Alibaba is curious about what that means. Lord Jamil tells his guard to pick Aladdin up and orders Alibaba to leave. Alibaba refuses and blocks his path. The Lord tells his guard to get rid of Alibaba, but he dodges the attack and holds his knife close to the guard's neck. Lord Jamil says he underestimated Alibaba and offers him a job. He calls the guard useless and stabs him multiple times with his sword, then asks Alibaba what his decision will be as he kicks the guard away. They reached a section of the dungeon with fire spouts. Alibaba noticed some writing on the wall. He read and translated it, discovering it said they had to dance around the fire spouts. The Lord was impressed and gave him some coins. Alibaba danced around the spouts and made it to the other side. He turned off the spouts so the others could cross, but a huge fire surrounded him, and he vanished. Aladdin woke up from his deep sleep and asked for Alibaba. Lord Jamal told Aladdin he had saved him, and that Alibaba ran away with his flute, but he promised to find him. Lord Jamal introduced his two slaves, Morgiana, who comes from a dark continent and has an excellent sense of smell and strong legs, and Goltas, who is very strong. Lord Jamal and Goltas left to scout the area, leaving Morgiana to watch over Aladdin. Aladdin changed shape to make Morgiana laugh. She told him about her home and why it's called a dark continent. He asked if she could take him there one day, but she said it wasn't possible since she was a slave, and escaping Lord Jamal would take more than just breaking her shackles. Aladdin asked what happened to Alibaba, and she said he was dead. Just then, Alibaba climbed down from the roof and said he was invisible. Lord Jamal and Goltas faced a monster and rushed to ask Aladdin for help, but were surprised to see Alibaba. Alibaba said he lied about the fire spouts and had found the true path. He and Aladdin flew off on their magic turban. Aladdin said goodbye to Morgiana, hoping they would meet again one day when her chains were fully broken. Morgiana imagined this, but quickly snapped back to reality and chased after them with her powerful legs. She couldn't stop them, and the Lord kicked her, vowing to hunt them down. Alibaba and Aladdin reached a door they thought was the real entrance to the treasures. They noticed two handprints meant to unlock the door. They both placed their hands on it and shouted, "Open sesame." The door opened, and they found themselves in a very large city. Aladdin and Alibaba realize the city is inside the dungeon. They see a burst of fire burning over a distant building. Lord Jamal and his slaves notice it too. He asks Morgiana what happened, but she can't answer, so he kicks her and calls her useless. As they fly over the city, Alibaba sees there's no one around. Aladdin tells him that the city is called the Necropolis, and it's outside the Room of Fortitude, something Ugo told him about. Alibaba asks if Ugo can talk, and Aladdin replies that he can only summon his body for now. Alibaba asks Aladdin to introduce him to Ugo when they get his flute back, and Aladdin agrees. They fly toward the fire and open a door in the building. Inside, they spot various treasures that look fake. Goltas enters after them and collapses to the ground. Aladdin sees he has big cuts on his body. Jamila and Morgiana come in, and Morgiana kicks Aladdin away. Alibaba draws his sword and challenges them. Jamil warns him not to mess with him because he's just a peasant. Alibaba responds that it doesn't matter if you're a peasant or a lord in the dungeon, Jamil tells him to shut up and starts throwing insults. Morgiana tries to attack Aladdin, and Alibaba chases after her but is stopped by Lord Jamil. He challenges him to a sword fight and blames him for everything he's endured in the dungeon. Alibaba agrees to the challenge and tells Jamil to stop sulking because they're in the dungeon. Jamil is overly confident he'll beat Alibaba. He charges at him and tries to slice him with his sword, but Alibaba is too fast, dodging all his attacks. Alibaba swings his sword at him, pointing out that Jamil makes a lot of mistakes in sword fighting. Jamil, now on the ground, calls for Morgiana to help him. Morgiana runs at Alibaba to kick him, but he dodges quickly. Alibaba is surprised by her speed. He pleads with her to stop obeying Lord Jamil, saying no one will care if she ditches him in the dungeon. He tells her she can be free and offers her his hand. She walks up to him, grabs his hand, and throws him to the ground. Lord Jamil pats her on the head, then walks over to Alibaba and kicks him, hurling insults. He gives his sword to Morgiana and orders her to kill Alibaba. She approaches him and raises the sword to stab him. Aladdin wakes up and points his staff at her, causing the sword to transform into butterflies. He walks over to Alibaba and asks if he's okay. Alibaba warns Aladdin to stay away from Morgiana because she's dangerous. Aladdin asks Lord Jamil for his flute back, but Jamil refuses, pointing his staff at him, causing a swirl of butterflies to surround Aladdin. Morgiana rushes at them, but a barrier holds her back. Jamil recalls a prophecy from his teacher about someone like Aladdin, and demands Aladdin choose between him or Morgiana, claiming Morgiana will destroy him. Morgiana breaks free and tries to kick Jamil, but a bright beam of light surrounds her and pins her to the wall. Timidly, Lord Jamil returns Aladdin's flute and begs him to make him king, insisting he's a great person. Aladdin walks over to Alibaba and tells him to continue their journey. Just as they're about to leave, a massive fire erupts in the room, and a jinn appears. He looks at them and declares Alibaba the king, then bows to Aladdin, calling him a magi. The jinn introduces himself as Amon. Ugo emerges from the flute and uses sign language to communicate with Amon. Amon announces that the dungeon is cleared. Aladdin asks what a magi is, and Amon explains that a magi chooses a king and clarifies why they've appeared on Earth. Suddenly, a major earthquake shakes the room, and Amon warns them that someone is trying to seal off the exit. He magically conjures a beam of light and tells anyone wanting to leave to step into it. Aladdin and Alibaba step in with their treasures, urging Morgiana to join them and leaving Lord Jamil behind. Goltus wakes up and tells Morgiana to abandon him and Jamil because they've done many bad things and she should return to her homeland. They leave the building with their treasures as the dungeon collapses. Outside, another magi tells his guard that he's fine with the outcome, and they fly away. Alibaba shares his plans to start a business in a city called Sindria, but needs to stop in Balbad to tie up loose ends. Aladdin mentions he has no plans of his own. Alibaba thanks him for helping clear the dungeon, admitting he couldn't have done it alone because he's a coward. Aladdin tells him he's the bravest person he knows. Alibaba suggests they travel to Sindria together and continue their adventure, since there's still so much to explore. Aladdin promises to follow him. They get separated. Morgiana wakes up outside her city. Alibaba finds himself with his treasures at the dungeon site while the townspeople cheer for him, and Aladdin is seen sleeping in a field. Alibaba's former master thanks him for returning his treasures and offers him fine wines and beautiful women, calling him master. Alibaba wonders where Aladdin has been for the past 3 days. One of Alibaba's servants tells him a kid is looking for him. He rushes out, thinking it's Aladdin, but it turns out to be Morgiana. Morgiana asks him why he freed the slaves. He tells her that's what Aladdin would have wanted. Morgiana thanks him and Aladdin for giving her freedom, and mentions that one day she'll return to her homeland. Alibaba sets out to find his friend Aladdin. Aladdin dreams of asking a about his identity, but he gets no answer. He wakes up to a woman who tells him that Rook is glad to see him looking refreshed. Aladdin asks what she means by Rook. She explains that they are light particles, shaped like butterflies, and that Rook is where souls reside. Eventually, every soul returns to them. Aladdin tells her Rook lives in him, and grants him their power. A woman named Tuya interrupts, informing the old woman that the scouting party has returned, and she leaves to greet them. Aladdin goes outside to join the woman as they welcome the scouting party. Tuya introduces Aladdin to a man named Dolge, who found him in the field. The old woman asks what they discovered on their journey, and she learns another village has been invaded. Dolge assures her that their clan, the Kuga clan, has always managed to avoid invasions, and they will fend them off if they ever try to invade. Everyone cheers. Aladdin blows his whistle. They all panic. They question Aladdin and suspect he might be a spy. Aladdin introduces himself and says he's from a town called Kishan. One of the scouts told him it would take 2 years to walk there. The old woman, known as Elder Baba, tells him not to panic and and that he can follow the caravan to get there in 2 weeks. Later that night, everyone celebrates and seems happy. Aladdin asks the old woman why they are always so cheerful. She says they are a family. Aladdin recalls when the creature told him he had no family. The old woman reassures him that he is part of their family, which makes him happy, and he hugs her. Aladdin drinks milk straight from a horse's udder. Tuya tells him to stop, but Dolge intervenes and grabs him by the head. Tuya asks why Dolge carries a sword, hoping they never have to fight but can live peacefully forever. Aladdin climbs onto a running horse, and Dolge goes to rescue him, but a woman on a horse saves him instead. The woman introduced herself to the clan as Hakui Ren, the daughter of the first Ku emperor. Elder Baba also introduced herself. The woman said she came to engage in diplomatic talks. Elder Baba explained how the Kuga clan was once the most powerful in the world but is now the weakest. The emperor's daughter pleaded with them to come under their empire so they could go on a quest to unify the world. Tuya offered the emperor's daughter and her guards some horse milk. Ryosai, one of the guards, pushed her away and announced that they were now under the rule of their empire and had to submit quietly. Dodge tried to attack Ryosai, but another guard stopped him. Elder Baba ordered Dolge to stand down, and the emperor's daughter also ordered Ryosai to back off. Later that night, Ryosai questioned why the princess stopped him from dealing with the Kuga people. She told him they needed a better strategy to convince them and that she would come up with it in the morning. Aladdin flew in on his turban to speak to the princess. She asked if he got the turban by clearing a dungeon, but he said he had always had it. Aladdin pleaded with her to drop her plans of taking over the Ku clan and killing the people because they were his family. She promised not to kill anyone, and that she only wanted a unified empire. Aladdin then went to talk to the old woman and the rest of the clan. Aladdin took a walk with Ugo and asked what he told Aemon at the dungeon, but got no reply. The old woman sent out her scout to track down and bring back Tuya and the rest who had been kidnapped. She warned them not to kill anyone as that might lead to war. The scouts caught up with the caravan transporting Tuya and the others and overpowered them. Aladdin and the old woman went to find the scouts but couldn't locate them, so they decided to wait. While waiting, Aladdin asked the woman what a magi was. She told him a story about a man who came to Earth during a time of calamity, created a country, and built a tower where he decided to make anyone who passed its trials a king to rule the country. She said the man was called a magi. Aladdin informed her that he spoke with the princess, and she promised there wouldn't be any killings. The scouts returned with the girl without killing anyone, just as the old woman had warned. Elder Baba, the old woman, addressed them. She said they would surrender to the Ku Empire to avoid war. Everyone gathered around a fire, and Dolge gave Tuya a gift while the elder teased him about becoming a man. Elder Baba then left them, thinking about wanting to see her great-grandchildren before she died. An arrow hit her, and she fell to the ground. Everyone gathers around Elder Baba and notices she is still breathing. Aladdin offers to take her back to the shelter. Ugo carries them and runs back to the shelter. A guard informs Princess Huike that the Kuga clan has executed one of their soldiers. Ryosai tells the princess they need to act and attack the Kuga clan. The princess refuses to believe this and decides to travel down to talk to the Kuga people. Ryosai confronts her and says he can't put up with her whims any longer. He tells her the emperor appointed him to keep her safe. The princess decides to travel as an ordinary person, not as a princess. Ryosai asks to be in charge of her army while she's away. She agrees and leaves with her other guard, Seishun. At the Kuga clan, the people revolt and call for an attack on the Ku's clan as revenge for Elder Baba and for kidnapping their women. Dolge tries to calm them down, reminding them that Elder Baba warned them not to go to war, no matter what happens. Everyone ignores his plea and decides to fight. Everyone grabs their weapons and rides out to war. Aladdin looks confused because he knows many will die. He hears the elder's voice from outside asking him to lend her his strength. Ryosai tells some soldiers that even after they've executed their plans, the Kuga clan has refused to strike, but he can't wait for the princess to fall into the hands of the angry Kuga clan. He fears they will harm her and start a war. He admits he loves war with a sheepish grin. The princess can't believe the Kuga clan would start a war after everything Aladdin told her. An arrow flies past, and the Kuga clan surrounds them, pointing their weapons at them. The princess tells them she means no harm and just wants to talk. One of the clan members calls her a liar and almost strikes her with his sword, giving her a small cut. He is surprised that the princess doesn't flinch. The princess again urges them to be calm and hear her out. They refuse. Elder Babe appears behind them and scolds them. She approaches the princess and bows. She agrees that the Kuga clan will be under the Ku clan and pleads for the princess to protect them. The princess notices she is bleeding, but the elder insists the village is more important than her life. They all drop their weapons and bow to the princess. Back at the settlement, everyone cries and mourns for Elder Baba's passing. Her spirit appears to Aladdin. She tells him she now understands him and that he is loved by the Rook. She explains that he is a magi, one who guides the souls of many and creates their world. Her spirit turns into a swarm of butterflies and she departs. Aladdin cries at her departure. On their way back, the princess and Seishun run into Ryosai leading the army to war. Ryosai confesses he he was responsible for kidnapping the Kuga clan women and attacking their elders. He tells her he will execute her and blame it on the Kuga clan. The soldiers shoot their arrows at her, but they get stopped and pushed back mid-air. Sensei charges at the soldiers with his powers, and the princess also uses her magic as she walks toward Ryosai to take him down. Back at the Kuga settlement, everyone pays their last respects to Elder Baba. Aladdin tells Ugo he's glad he met the Kuga clan because he finally got answers about who he is. He notices the Rook calling his attention to a certain place. The princess conjures a massive tornado that wipes out Ryosai's army. She transforms back and feels weak. Unbeknownst to her, more of the Ryosai army surrounds them. They capture her and Sensui. She grabs a sword and charges at Ryosai, challenging him to a one-on-one fight. 4 arrows pierce her hands and legs, and she falls. Just as Ryosai is about to execute her, Aladdin and Ugo land on the scene, causing an explosion. Ugo smacks Ryosai, knocking him unconscious. The princess asks Aladdin who he is, and he replies that he is a magi. Aladdin touches her fan, and a jinn appears named Paimon. She introduces herself as the jinn of maniacal love and chaos created by King Solomon, and says she has been chosen to guide Princess Hakwe Ren. Ugo appears, and the 2 jinns communicate using sign language. Paimon tells them that Hakwe has been chosen to be king by the Magi of the Ku Empire. The Magi of the Ku Empire, commonly known as the Lord Priest, is summoned to see the king. On his way, he taunts Hakuyu, Hakwe Ren's brother, telling him to clear a dungeon just like his sister so he can become king. Paimon asks Aladdin if he has chosen a king because that's the job of the Magi. Back at the settlement, Aladdin gets ready to leave. They offer him Elder Baba's staff as a gift and say goodbye. He sees a sword similar to Goltus's and asks if they know him. They claim he must have been part of their clan. Aladdin remembers Ugo told him that when he travels the world, he'll find answers about who he is. Everyone says their goodbyes as he sets off on his journey to find Alibaba. At a market, Morgiana helps her 2 friends, Layla and Sasa, restock their fruits. On their way home, Morgiana thanks them for taking her in 6 months ago when she jumped into their caravan, thinking they were headed for Balbad. Her friends tell her they'd love for her to stay with them because she's such a hard worker. She declines their offer, saying she has to travel to her homeland. When they arrive in town, they notice everyone looking sad. They ask a man what's going on, and he tells them that rogue thieves have robbed the town and advises them to leave quickly. As they are leaving, Layla bumps into a slave merchant who is traveling with his slaves. Later that night, Morgiana wonders when the chain marks on her leg will go away. She dreams of her younger days when young Lord Jamila would taunt and mistreat her. She wakes up, realizing it was just a nightmare. Layla offers her a remedy to help her sleep. Morgiana thanks her again for everything she and Sasa have done for her. Layla shares that Sasa and a mysterious young boy helped her when she was helpless in the desert, and just like Morgiana, she is alive because of their kindness. Sasa responds with a thank you, revealing she has been listening the whole time. Sasa compliments her, saying she cares about her friend, but Morgiana playfully denies it. Morgiana learns she can't journey to Balbad because a large group of thieves has camped on the only path there. The man asks if she can take a different route, but she explains that she can only catch a ship to her homeland at Balbad. Morgiana asks if they can travel if the thieves are defeated. Morgiana sneaks into the thieves' camp and asks them nicely to leave. When they ignore her, she ends up delivering a beating to all of them. The slave merchant and the leader of the thieves hear the commotion and look out the window. The slave merchant is impressed with Morgiana's fighting skills and realizes she's a finalis. He tells the thief leader that he wants Morgiana. His crow attacks her, but she sees it coming and dodges, sustaining only a minor injury. The slave trader introduces himself, and Morgiana remembers him from the market. He orders his men to get the thief leader, but before she can finish, her vision goes blurry and she falls asleep. It turns out the crow poisoned her when it scratched her. Morgiana wakes up in a prison and spots a little girl in the same cell. The girl introduces herself as Naja and shares how a scary man took her from her parents. Morgiana explains that they will be sold as slaves and tells her what a slave is. The little girl starts crying, which makes Morgiana remember the time she was auctioned off and how she cried. She comforts the little girl and promises to rescue her and her parents. Sasa and Layla search everywhere for Morgiana but can't find her. They decide to go look for her when an old man and some armed men block their path. Morgiana feels the little girl burning up and realizes she's drawing the attention of the slave trader. He checks on her and decides he will feed her to the desert hyenas. He ties the little girl up and hangs her in the air. He lets the hyena loose and slowly releases the rope, keeping her suspended. Morgiana tries to break free from her chains but can't. She She sees Goltas in a vision telling her she can do it. The slave trader cuts the rope, and the little girl falls among the hyenas. Morgiana jumps down to save her, breaking her chains in the process. She screams out sonic waves that scare the hyenas away. The slave trader releases saber-toothed tigers. Morgiana reassures the little girl not to worry about anything. She charges at the tigers and takes them down one by one. She leaps at the slave trader as he begs for his life. She asks for his prison key and sets all the slaves free. To her surprise, she finds Aladdin among them. Aladdin retrieves his flute and calls Ugo. Layla, Sasa, the old man, and the mercenaries they hired ride to rescue Morgiana and the others, but discover they've already been freed. Aladdin is surprised to see Sosa and Layla are friends with Morgiana. She hugs Sasa and playfully interacts with her. The old man tells Morgiana that they can now head to Balbad. Aladdin mentions he also plans to go there on his quest to find Alibaba. They agree to travel together. Later that night, everyone celebrates their freedom. Aladdin tells Morgiana that everyone is connected, and even if they get separated, they won't be alone. In the morning, everyone goes their separate ways. Aladdin and Morgiana set off on their journey to Balbad. Aladdin asks if he can call her Mor since Morgiana is too long. She agrees. Some guys look wiped out from walking under the sun for too long. They spot a man draped in jewelry, sleeping in the shade, and decide to approach him. The smell of alcohol leads them to think he must have passed out from drinking too much. On their way to Balbad, Aladdin asks Morgiana if she plans to take a ship back to her homeland. She confirms this and mentions that seeing Alibaba is also part of the plan. She thanks Aladdin and Alibaba for giving her freedom. Just then, a man suddenly appears in front of them, completely naked except for his privates. Morgiana and Aladdin are shocked to see him, and Aladdin offers him some of his clothes. The man introduces himself as Sin, and explains that he was on his way to Balbad when thieves robbed him. Aladdin apologizes for his initial reaction and blames it on crossing the desert, making him wary. Sin talks about discovering new lands and knowledge, saying that going on adventures builds confidence and friendship. Aladdin agrees. Morgiana mentions she can smell the sea nearby. They climb a hill and see the big country of Balbad and the vast ocean next to it. As they stroll through the market of Balbad, Sin explains how the country has prospered through maritime trade. He tells them that the royal family running the city is the Saluja family, who has governed for generations. While touring the city, they notice graffiti on a wall that says, "Down with the monarchy." Sin informs them that the country fell into chaos after the last king died. He takes them to a hotel and offers to pay for their rooms. However, the guards stop him as he enters. Another man asks the guards to let him go. He confirms to Morgiana and Aladdin that he will cover their room costs, just as Sin promised. They thank the men. Sin asks one of his friends, a finalis, if he's surprised to see another one. The other friend asks Sin if the thieves didn't steal everything from him. He admits he lost it all. The man tells him he should start acting like a king, because he is Sinbad, king of Sindria. A hotel attendant shows Morgiana and Aladdin to their room. Aladdin jumps on the bed and asks the attendant where they can find a ship to the Dark Continent, Morgiana's homeland. The attendant replies that it will be tough to find one right now. Sin holds a meeting with Balbad's current ruler, Ahmad, where he urges him to reopen maritime trade with Sindria, which was the alliance with the previous ruler. The ruler replies he can't because he has domestic issues to deal with. The hotel attendant explains that some thieves have been bothering them in Balbad whenever there's fog, and that's why they're called the Fog Troop. She goes on to say that they only target the national treasury, the houses of nobles, and national trading centers, redistributing their spoils to the people, who then call them heroic thieves and support them. The ruler explains to Sin that the new leader of the Fog Troop is irritating. The attendant tells Morgiana and Aladdin that the Fog Troop leader's name is Alibaba. The ruler mentions that because of the Fog Troop, maritime trade can't reopen, and anyone wanting to restart it must deal with the Fog Troop. Sim vows to handle them. Aladdin assures Morgiana that it's a different Alibaba. He looks out the window and says he misses Alibaba. Ahmad tells his advisor that no matter what Sin does, reopening maritime trade will never be possible. Sinbad invites Morgiana and Aladdin to lunch and introduces them to his friends, Jafar and Masroor, pointing out that Masroor is a finalis like Morgiana. Jafar asks why he made such a bold statement to the ruler. Sinbad replies that he needs to help because he owes the previous ruler a debt of gratitude and can't let his kingdom fall into chaos. Aladdin summons Ugo. Sin is shocked to see this and realizes Aladdin is a magi. Aladdin asks if Sin knows other magis. Sin begins to reveal his true identity, but Aladdin has never heard of him. He explains to Aladdin who the magi are and how they can use the unlimited power of the Rook. He pleads with Aladdin to help him eliminate the Fog Troop. Aladdin and Morgiana think it over and decide to help him if he'll assist them in finding Alibaba. He tries to persuade Morgiana not to fight, but she disagrees. They all strategize on how to attack and figure out where the Fog Troop might strike next. Morgiana questions if they're making the right choice, since people love the Fog Troop. Sinbad explains that there's no justification for the Fog Troop's robbery activities. They split into two groups, each watching potential robbery locations. Sinbad and Masrur are attacked by starving peasants at their spot. He tells them to withdraw their taxes if they feel the nobles don't deserve them. At the location of Morgiana, Aladdin, and Jafar, the Fog Troop attacks with a red mist to take down the guards. Jafar fights back but is overpowered by magic. Morgiana joins the fight, but her efforts are also futile as the magical power restrains them. Aladdin summons Ugo and blocks their escape route. A masked thief decides to handle the situation. He removes his mask and to Aladdin's surprise, it's Alibaba. Alibaba asks Aladdin to call back Ugo so he and his friends can escape. Aladdin does what he asks, telling Alibaba he came to Balbad to find him so they can travel the world together like he promised. Alibaba, however, says he can't keep that promise anymore and walks away. The army chases after Alibaba and the thieves, but he uses his knife to summon Amon. They report to Sin that the leader of the Fig Troop is a dungeon clearer and the person Aladdin has been looking for. At the Fog Troop hideout, the guys who robbed Sin join the Fog Troop. Alibaba warns them not to steal for their own selfish gains but for the slums, and if they don't listen, they'll lose their lives. He questions his friend Kasim about why he's bringing in so many unknown men, joking that it sounds like he's trying to start a war. Some little kids happily run up to Alibaba, telling him they now eat twice a day thanks to him. Kasim reminds him of how they struggled in the slums when they were younger and pleads with him not to leave. Aladdin is in his room and thinks he hears footsteps, but assumes he's imagining it. He lies on his bed and is shocked to see Morgiana. She grabs him and quiets him down, asking why he decided to join the thieves when just 6 months ago he was searching for Aladdin. He urges her to leave before she gets herself killed. She grabs him again and decides to take him to Aladdin. Alibaba screams as she jumps over rooftops. The new robbers are planning how to sell some of their stolen items to cover their living expenses without relying on the Fog Troop. One of them complains that all they'll get is paper money, not gold or silver. Jafar explains to Sinbad that the Ku Empire is using their military power to force other countries to trade with their paper money and have pressured King Ahmad into accepting it, which has disrupted Balbad's economy. He also suggests getting in touch with their home country. Sinbad asks about Aladdin, and is told he's feeling down in his room. Aladdin gazes at the moon, talking to his flute about everything he needs to do, from traveling to the Dark Continent to learning from Sinbad. He falls to his knees, realizing he has no strength left. Morgiana throws Alibaba into Aladdin's room. Alibaba and Aladdin look at each other and exchange pleasantries. Morgiana tells them to skip the small talk and confronts Alibaba about the Fog Troop and their impact on the country. Aladdin asks her to put that aside and talk about happier things instead. He tells Alibaba he was supposed to capture the Fog Troop but didn't know he'd be with them, so he asks why he joined. Alibaba then tells him the story of his friend Kasim and their childhood. He shares that he and Kasim used to fight a lot when they were kids, but that didn't stop them from being friends and playing together. Back then, life was tough, but his mother, who was just a prostitute in the slum, cared for and loved him. It was different for Kasim and his sister though, because their father never cared for them and always mistreated them. One day, Kasim's father disappeared and never came back. Alibaba's mother took in Kasim and his sister and cared for them. They lived together until one day when Alibaba's mother got sick and died. To support them, Kasim decided to join a gang of thieves. Alibaba asked if he could join, but Kasim turned him down, saying the job wasn't right for him. One day, the king of Balbad decided to visit the slum and asked to see Alibaba. The king revealed he was his father and wanted him to live in the palace. Alibaba told Kasim about it, but Kasim said he didn't care because he had always suspected he was different anyway. This made Alibaba angry, and he hit him. That day, Alibaba went to the palace, where he was trained and educated. He didn't visit the slum for 3 years until one day he sneaked out to check it out. He found that the slum was gone. He met Kasim, and they caught up over some wine. Kasim asked how he snuck out of the palace, and Alibaba explained. Kasim told him the slum was destroyed to redevelop the city. Alibaba went back to the palace, but unbeknownst to him, Kasim had his guys quietly follow him. One day, the king got sick, and on his sickbed, he told Alibaba that he would take over the kingdom when he was gone. That same day, Kasim and his gang entered the palace through the tunnels he had mentioned and stole the palace's treasure. They hit Alibaba on the head as they set the palace on fire. Then someone told Kasim that Alibaba had been kidnapped, and he ordered his men to gather and go rescue him. Alibaba tells them that after he regained consciousness, he was informed that the king had died. This drove him to flee Balbad, and he started to struggle to survive. He says he always dreamed of clearing a dungeon, but that wasn't possible until he met Aladdin. Sinbad and his friends are listening in on their conversation from outside. Morgiana asks why he chose to join the Fog Troop, considering Kasim betrayed him in his story. He replies that after he cleared the dungeon, he wanted to return to Balbad to correct his mistake, but what he discovered was unbelievable. unbelievable. Alibaba asked some people what had happened to the country, and they told him it had fallen into chaos since the king's death, with a group of thieves tormenting the nation. Just then, the fog troop attacked, and he was shocked to see Kasim as their leader. He thought Kasim was responsible for the country's downfall, but after speaking with him, he realized it was the government's fault. Kasim took him to Mariam's grave and explained that a year after he left, a pandemic hit the slums and killed many, including Mariam. He told Alibaba how the government ignored their needs for medicine and food. He said they burned the slum after the pandemic subsided. Alibaba felt angry that Kasim had lied about everyone being okay when he asked a few years earlier. Kasim begged him to join the fog troop and become their leader. Alibaba tells Aladdin that even though Kasim betrayed him back then, he realized he is still a friend and family after their talk, which is why he joined the fog troop. He informs them that when the time is right, he will reveal his identity and talk to King Ahmad. Aladdin asks what he'll do if things don't go as planned and advises him not to let his anger consume him. Alibaba grows restless, saying he doesn't know what to do. Aladdin strikes him gently with his staff and tells him to calm down. Aladdin offers to help him find a solution to the country's problems and to help his friends. At that moment, Kasim and his crew crash through the roof. Some other gang members attack Sinbad and his friends but fail. Kasim tells Alibaba they came to rescue him and capture Sinbad. As they try to escape, Sinbad and his friends block their way, and Masrur weakens them with powerful kicks. Sinbad urges Kasim to surrender, but instead, Kasim attacks Sinbad with his magical sword. His magic doesn't work against Sinbad, who captures and restrains him. Kasim dares Alibaba to pull out his weapon and attack, but he hesitates. Sinbad calls the fog troop slum people and tries to convince them to abandon Kasim, claiming he is a prince and different from them. This makes Alibaba angry, and he pulls out his weapon, summoning the power of Aman. He attacks Sinbad, who dodges all his moves and overpowers him. Kasim yells at Sinbad, asking why he can't mind his own business since Balbad isn't his country. Sinbad says he wants to join the fog troop and fight against the government of Balbad. Jafar is shocked and questions his decision. Sinbad asks why he's being cold-hearted and ignoring the country's situation. He tells him he'd rather join the people fighting for the slums than help the clueless king. Sinbad approaches Alibaba and asks if he can join them, but Alibaba refuses, saying he won't fall for his tricks. He tells him he's just trying to change the world's problems, of which Balbad is a part. Kasim interrupts and warns Alibaba not to fall for it, saying Sinbad wouldn't help them and would rather see them starve. This angers Jafar, who tries to hit Kasim with his weapon, but Sinbad stops him by holding the weapon. Alibaba finally agrees to let him join. Sinbad urges Alibaba to follow him to the royal palace and speak to King Ahmad to reclaim his throne, since he now has the people's support. He promises to back his claim to the throne because he's a friend of Alibaba's father, the former king. The next day, people read the announcement stating they should gather at the royal palace to witness the discussion between Ahmad and Alibaba about the future of their country. Alibaba is surprised by how many people show up to witness this. Sinbad tells him this turnout shows they have hope in him. Alibaba pleads with his brother Ahmed to protect the lives of his citizens and ease their suffering, saying that if he does this, he will disband the fog troop. Ahmad orders his guards to arrest him, saying he doesn't consider him a brother and would have executed him if not for Sinbad. He also insults his citizens, calling them maggots. This makes Alibaba angry, and he yells at him that he's unfit to be king. Someone enters and asks what the commotion is about. Meanwhile, at the palace grounds, Aladdin wonders if Alibaba is okay. Morgiana reassures him that he will be fine because the people are there to support him. A strange man walks past Aladdin, and he senses an unusual energy. The man who entered the palace revealed his face and introduced himself as Markio the banker, the financial advisor for the country's treasury. Sinbad also introduced himself and asked if they had met before. The man who walked past Aladdin, named Judal, entered the palace and immediately recognized Sinbad, calling him Bonehead. He informed Sinbad that he was the priest of the Ku Empire and was in Balbad to discuss business. King Ahmad told Sinbad that reopening their maritime trade wasn't possible anymore, as he had given Balbad's trading rights to the Ku Empire, meaning he couldn't trade with any country not approved by them. He mentioned that the banker advised him to take steps to improve Balbad's economy. The banker confirmed this and asked if Sinbad would also put his country under the banker's control. Aladdin yelled at Ahmad, demanding he help his suffering people. Ahmad replied he didn't speak to slum people, which angered Alibaba, leading him to scream at the king. Later that night, people were anxious to hear the outcome of the negotiation between Ahmad and Alibaba. Alibaba looked sad because the negotiation had failed, and Ahmad would only talk to Sinbad. Aladdin consoled him, urging him to listen to the voices of the people outside calling for news. He reminded Alibaba that he had given the people hope, and that was enough. Morgiana asked what they would tell the people. Jafar entered and informed them that Sinbad was about to announce the results to the crowd. Sinbad called Alibaba to join him him on the stand before addressing the people. He announced that the negotiations had completely broken down and a war with the Imperial Army was now inevitable. The people muttered that they were doomed since Qasim and his group had abandoned them. Sinbad assured them that as long as they continued to fight against poverty and support their families, they were not doomed. He promised to stand by them and even offered to accept them into his country if they were driven out. The people felt relieved to hear this. Judal flew into the scene wearing a turban, stating he had come to meet with Sinbad. Sinbad asked if he was there on behalf of Ahmad or the Ku Empire. Judal replied he represented neither and wanted to team up with Sinbad to conquer the world. Aladdin asked Jafar who the man was, to which Jafar responded that Judal was also a magi like him. Judal noticed Aladdin and asked who he was, sensing a strange rook around him. Sinbad said Aladdin was a magi too. Judal laughed, calling Aladdin a little shrimp, then came closer and asked for his name. He offered to shake Aladdin's hand, but instead hit him in the face. Judal then asked Sinbad if he planned to team up with the little magi, but Sinbad responded that their meeting was just a coincidence. Judal inquired who Aladdin's king candidate was. When he received no reply, he decided to use his powers to find out, discovering it was Alibaba. He called Alibaba pathetic for having yelled in the palace earlier. Aladdin stood up for Alibaba, defending him and saying he wasn't pathetic for fighting for the people even if he might fail. Judal pulled out a small staff and blasted Alibaba with it. Aladdin got his staff out, challenging Judal to a fight. Sinbad ordered them to stop, but Judal ignored him, telling Sinbad to stay out of magi affairs, knowing he couldn't stop him without a metal vessel. Masrur tried to intervene, but it was useless. Judal cast some magic at Aladdin, but it was ineffective. He then suggested they fight using magic. Aladdin, unsure, offered to demonstrate. He summoned the rules and shot a devastating lightning bolt at Aladdin, thinking he had overpowered him, only to be surprised to see Ugo protecting him. Judal claimed he wasn't finished, magically summoning the waters of Balbad and turning them into ice spears, which he sent raining down on Aladdin and everyone else, forcing them to flee. Ugo dodged all the ice and charged at Judal, who nearly didn't see it coming. Ugo slammed him hard into the ground. In retaliation, Judal unleashed his ice spears on Aladdin, but Ugo stepped in and took the hits instead. Aladdin cried out as Ugo began to leak Magoi, asking Judal why he was doing this. Judal replied he was always bored and wanted to test his powers, claiming there was more where his powers came from as he shot a lightning bolt at Aladdin. Morgiana quickly moved him out of the way before the lightning struck. Alibaba attacked Judal with his knife, but couldn't penetrate the invisible wall surrounding him. Eventually, his weapon broke through, and he slashed Judal across the face. Judal blasted Alibaba away into the ice. Sinbad shouted for him to stop, but Judal told him to stay out of it. Sinbad charged at Judal and gave him powerful punches. In retaliation, Judal created a massive ice spear and stabbed Ugo through the chest. Judal thought he had won, but Ugo retaliated, slapping Judal's hands away and throwing him to the ground, appearing lifeless. Ugo creates a powerful burst of energy with his hands. Sinbad realizes the impact it will have and warns everyone to clear the area. Ugo unleashes this power on Judal, resulting in an explosion that shakes the place. Aladdin thanks Morgiana for saving him, and Ash reassures them that no one was hurt because Sinbad warned them beforehand. Everyone is curious about what's happening with Ugo and why he's acting alone. Suddenly, some people arrive on a magic carpet, catching everyone off guard. Sinbad figures out they're from the Ku Empire since they're there for Judal. One of them, a princess, tells her assistant to heal Judal while she gets ready to fight Ugo. She sees that Ugo is still eager to fight, so she summons her water powers. Ugo charges at her, but she pushes him back and quickly defeats him. Aladdin confronts her, explaining that Judal attacked them first and Ugo was just trying to protect him and everyone else. The princess realizes Aladdin is Ugo's master and challenges him to a fight. She commands her monstrous bodyguards to take out everyone else while she battles Aladdin. The creatures attack as Masrur, Morgiana, and Alibaba try to fend them off, but they're too strong. The princess faces Aladdin, calls forth her magical powers, and starts transforming to fight him. Sinbad steps in, grabs her hand to stop her from fully transforming, and introduces himself as Sinbad, King of Sindria. She looks at him in surprise. Sinbad tells her that people in their position shouldn't be fighting and asks her to back down. He also urges Aladdin to stand down and informs him that Ugo is still alive because a jinn is tough to kill. Sinbad explains to the princess why he's in the country and invites her to talk somewhere more suitable. She orders her team to leave. Alibaba feels relieved. They're gone and asks if anyone is hurt. Aladdin notices that Ugo's mark on his flute has disappeared and realizes he needs to give him more power. Sinbad and Jafar attend to the injured, with Morgiana helping as well. They chat about how hardworking and sweet Morgiana is. She feels frustrated for not being able to help Aladdin and Alibaba. Alibaba checks for injuries in his room. While he's doing this, Morgiana walks in without knocking and sees him naked. They both freeze, looking shocked. Morgiana helps him dress his wounds. Alibaba asks about Aladdin's condition, and she tells him he wants to be alone. Alibaba worries for Aladdin because every time he uses his mysterious powers, it takes a toll on his body. They hear people calling for help outside, so they rush out to find Aladdin has collapsed into a coma. Sinbad instructs them to quickly take his flute away from him. They bring him inside, and Jafar informs them that Aladdin's condition is very serious because he is extremely weak. Sinbad explains that he transferred all his powers to the flute to try to revive Ugo. Alibaba notices that Aladdin looks weaker than the last time he fell into a coma. Sinbad sees that Ugo's mark hasn't come back on the flute. He urges everyone to let Aladdin rest. Some of the Fog Troop members confront Alibaba, asking him what will happen to the slum and their group. He's at a loss for words, but Sinbad arrives and reassures the men that everything is under control as he promised. He also mentions that he has requested help from Sindria, advising them to treat the wounded and prepare for their arrival. Alibaba chastises himself for not being able to reassure the group and help them. He wonders where Kasim is because he would have done a better job. Suddenly, someone rushes over, panicked, and tells him the army is closing in. Alibaba learns it's General Barkak, the man who taught him sword fighting back at the palace, along with his brother Sabmad, the deputy king. General Barkak explains that Sabmad has important news to share, which is why they're there. Sinbad asks Sabmad what he wants to say. Sabmad reveals he was the mole in the palace who provided information to the Fog Troop. He claims he did it because he wanted Alibaba to help the country and stop King Ahmad. Sinbad asks him why he wants to stop Ahmad, and Sabmad breaks down, saying he's afraid of what Ahmad is trying to do to the country. General Barkak explains how the country's issues began. He recounts how a banker manipulated King Ahmad into accepting a paper currency called the Fuan, and before long, their economy collapsed and became dependent on it. He continues, explaining that the country's debt increased and they took out loans to pay off other loans. All their trading rights were seized as collateral, and now the king plans to use the citizens' rights as collateral because there's nothing else left to use. He shares that Ahmad has plans to sell his citizens to other empires, turning Balbad into a slave-producing country. Morgiana asks the deputy king if he's come to ask for their help in stopping Ahmad, and he confirms it. Morgiana urges Alibaba to let them fight back and end the madness. The deputy king informs them that in 5 days there will be a ceremony where King Ahmad will marry a princess from the Ku Empire, and on that day, they plan to sign a contract to use the people of Balbad as collateral. He pleads with Alibaba to do something before then. Sinbad volunteers to contact the allies of Sindria and convince them to formally object to the government of Balbad. General Barkak tells the deputy king it's time to leave. Alibaba visits Aladdin, who is still in a coma and lying in bed. He talks to him about what his brother Sabmad told him and how he requested their help for the country. He says that even though Aladdin has always believed in him, he still doubts whether he's a true hero like King Sinbad, who has many abilities. Sinbad and his men discuss their next steps. Sinbad points out that even if they stop slavery, it won't save the country from the mess it's already in. He claims the country needs a fresh start with a ruler who cares about the people like Alibaba, but he still doubts Alibaba's capabilities. Morgiana bursts in and confronts Sinbad for doubting Alibaba. She tells him that even if Alibaba lacks confidence sometimes, no one is more capable of helping the country. At the palace, the banker flatters the king about the wedding ceremony and the contract signing. He convinces him that the kingdom will prosper under the Ku Empire. Sinbad gathers everyone to share his findings. He reveals that Judal the Magi is the reason Ku's empire transformed from a small town into a military powerhouse. He explains the abilities of a Magi, with the most obvious being the ability to create dungeons and guide people through them. He tells them that Judal has an insatiable thirst for conquest, and his next target is Balbad. He informs them that they've successfully influenced King Ahmed, who has sold the rights of all his people to them, driving the country to ruin. Morgiana says she knows enough and leaves, while Aladdin follows, but Sinbad asks him to stay for a private chat. Sinbad tells him that his father once spoke about his exceptional son, and he's sure he was talking about Alibaba. He mentions that they are similar in some ways, but Alibaba insists he is much better than Sinbad could ever be. Sinbad warns him that the country will be paralyzed under King Ahmad's rule, so he needs to become king. Alibaba panics and refuses, believing he isn't ready. Sinbad promises to support him every step of the way, even teaching him to master his weapons abilities. Sinbad tells him that Morgiana, the Fog Troop, and everyone else believes in him and is waiting for him to fulfill his destiny. While Alibaba walks through town, a little boy recognizes him and shouts his name. People gather around him asking about his meeting with the king and pleading for his help. Someone pulls him off the bridge, and he falls into a boat. He looks up and sees it's Qasim. Qasim explains that he vanished because he doesn't want Sinbad to look down on him. He mentions that he knows Ahmad is planning to sell the citizens into slavery. He proposes they arm the people and lead an attack against the government. He introduces Alibaba to a guy who's been giving them magical magical weapons and other arms. He tells Alibaba that this man will provide all the weapons they need for the war, and they'll strike in 2 days. Alibaba disagrees with the plan, stressing that innocent lives will be lost if they go after the government, since King Ahmad will have the Ku Empire's support. Qasim insists he doesn't care as long as they win. Alibaba yells at him to stop the plan and let him save the country without killing anyone. Qasim punches him hard and calls him useless, warning him not to try to stop him. Alibaba begs Sinbad to teach him how to control his jinn because he wants to do everything he can to save the country. Sinbad agrees, and they start training. Sinbad explains an ability called Jinn Equip, where they can transfer their jinn into their body. Since time is short, he decides to teach Alibaba the Jinn Weapon Equip instead, where the dungeon capturer can turn his weapon into his jinn's weapon. Alibaba tries, but he gets tired quickly. Sinbad tells his men that Alibaba is a promising student. Jafar informs him that he received intel that the Shadow is headed to Balbad. Sinbad says he'll start making moves too, beginning with a chat with the Ku Empire's princess. Morgiana finds Alibaba sitting next to Aladdin on his sickbed. Alibaba tells her he blames himself for what happened to Aladdin and Ugo. Morgiana reassures him that Aladdin would never see helping as a big deal because he respects him. Morgiana notices Alibaba acting strangely and recalls the last time he acted like that, he disappeared afterward. She figures he might be planning to do the same again. Alibaba puts on a mask and sneaks into the palace. He takes his mask off, announces himself, and orders the guards to open the gate. Alibaba tells the guards that he needs to speak with the king, but they refuse, saying they won't let the leader of the fog troop into the palace. The crowd outside starts throwing stones and demands the gates be opened. Alibaba signals for them to stop and urges the guards to open the gates, or he'll order the crowd to keep throwing stones. They comply. Alibaba unsheathes his weapon, raises it, and a blast of fire envelops him. He assures the crowd that he will save the country. The Ku princess asks her assistant about Judal's recovery. He tells her that it will take time. She complains about the political nature of her marriage and wishes she could be a warrior, especially since she just captured a dungeon and got a metal vessel. The assistant explains that the marriage is necessary to control Balbad, which is essential for trade and crucial to their empire. She imagines marrying Sinbad but hopes her future husband will be handsome, since tradition has kept her from seeing him. King Ahmad receives mutated creatures from the Ku Empire as wedding gifts. Suddenly, a guard rushes in to tell him there's an intruder in the palace. Ahmad and the banker discover it's Alibaba. The banker orders the largest of the mutated creatures to deal with Alibaba. The creature transforms into a monstrous elephant and attacks him. They start fighting, and Alibaba begins to dodge its attacks and retaliate. King Ahmad notices the metal vessel Alibaba has, and is surprised to find out he's a dungeon capturer. Alibaba tries several times to use the Jinn Equip that Sinbad taught him, but he fails. The elephant has the upper hand and knocks him out. While helpless on the floor, he sees visions of the past with people calling for his help. In his vision, Aladdin offers him his hand and calls him a hero. Alibaba wakes up and strikes the monster. He gathers the remaining power in him and successfully summons the Jinn Equip. He slices the monster elephant in half. The banker, seeing this, orders the other mutated creatures to attack him. He cuts through them, but they regenerate and come at him again. He decides to hit them with the remaining powers he has left when, out of nowhere, Morgiana jumps in to help. Morgiana tells him that she's here to assist him. Morgiana encourages him to leave, claiming she's stronger than she looks, and she throws him up into the palace. The creatures surround Morgiana, and their leader tells her she can't defeat them. Morgiana replies that they haven't seen the best of her yet and gets ready to fight. Jafar informs Sinbad that Alibaba has busted into the palace. Sinbad acknowledges that Alibaba's action might complicate their political resolution, but he sees a way forward and decides to visit the palace. Alibaba charges into the palace with his sword, but a mutated creature stops him. He charges at it with his sword, but just then, Amon's sword disappears because he has run out of Magoi. He remembers how Sinbad taught him to accumulate Magoi. He creates a flame and uses that energy to gather Magoi. He turns his metal vessel back into Amon's sword and slices the creature in half. Morgiana is fighting the creatures outside the palace, but it seems like her attacks aren't having any effect. She decides to attack all of them at once, just like Masrur did once. She leaps around, gathering energy, and strikes the creatures hard, resulting in an explosion. The crowd outside looks shocked by this. Alibaba enters the throne room and shouts at Ahmad that he's there to settle things. The banker tells the king that he has exhausted his Magwai and won't pose much of a threat. Alibaba replies that he won't need it because he doesn't plan to fight the guards, who are citizens of Balbad. Ahmad orders his guards to get rid of him, but they end up restraining him with their spears. Savmad yells at the guards to let Alibaba go. He grabs the king's staff and, as the deputy king, tells them not to interfere in the conversation between Alibaba and the king. They release Alibaba, and he tells Ahmad that he's there to change the country's status quo. The princess asks her assistant what the noise coming from the palace is all about. He replies that they might be inspecting the wedding gifts or preparing for the ceremony happening the next day. Morgiana finishes off the remaining creatures and hopes Alibaba accomplishes his mission in the palace. Inside the palace, Savmad reveals Ahmad's plan to sell the citizens into slavery. Ahmad accuses him of trying to steal the throne and taunts him, calling him a coward who won't have the courage to face the guards and citizens. Alibaba intervenes and yells at Ahmad to stop. He tells him that Savmad is not a coward and recounts how Savmad came into the fog troop and told him about the country's situation, as well as how he ordered the guards earlier. Ahmad pulls a sword from one of the guards and attacks Alibaba. He disarms Alibaba and hits him on the cheek, sending him to the ground. Ahmad orders the guards to attack Alibaba, but they ignore him. Alibaba commands Ahmad to renounce his kingship and give up his claim to the throne because he has done a lot of damage to the country. The princess enters the room and asks what the commotion is about. Some thieves decide to steal from Sinbad before the country falls into ruin. One of them mentions that the jewelry they've stolen might be metal vessels. They notice particles of light in the sky. The Rooks gather around Alibaba and Judel. Back at the palace, the princess introduces herself and informs them that she is to marry the king. She asks about his identity since she hasn't seen him before. She is disappointed to see Ahmad but decides to stick with the initial plan. The banker tells her that he is no longer the king because there has been a coup d'etat and they need to choose a new king. The princess insists her mission is to marry the king regardless of who he is and sign the treaty, adding that nothing will change that. Savmad declines the opportunity to become the new king, stating he is not capable of ruling. He reveals that Aladdin is the best candidate to rule and passes the position to him. Aladdin also rejects the role, shocking everyone. He addresses them, saying he blames himself for the previous king's death because he enabled the event that led to it, and he feels extremely irresponsible. He pleads with the princess to cancel the wedding and signing of the treaty. He informs them that the nation no longer needs a monarchy but a people's republic, where citizens can make their own decisions and choose their leaders. He believes this is the only way to save the country, and is willing to dedicate his soul and body to this cause. King Sinbad walks in with some people, introducing them as directors of other countries under the Seven Sea Alliance he commands. He has brought them to recommend Alibaba as king, but it seems that won't be needed anymore. The princess tells Alibaba that a people's republic isn't possible because Balbad has sold all their rights to the Ku Empire. Alibaba argues that the former treaties Balbad signed should be cancelled, as they are creating a new country. The princess warns that the emperor may resort to violence to reclaim the country. Alibaba urges them to dismiss such thoughts, and suggests they could repay the Ku Empire with their profits from maritime trading. The princess disagrees with this, but Sinbad jumps into the conversation and tells her that Balbad will be joining the Seven Sea Alliance, and that an invasion isn't possible because they're part of an alliance that prohibits it. Alibaba adds that Balbad and Sindria have been close allies for generations, which the princess's assistant also confirms. The princess suggests that King Sinbad visit the Ku Empire to prove his claims to the emperor, and he agrees. As she leaves, she thinks to herself that she's glad she won't be marrying Ahmad. Sinbad admires Alibaba's courage to confront the Ku Empire and seek a resolution. Everyone in the room is happy about this. On her way home, the princess says she can't wait to tell her father that Balbad has abolished the monarchy. She seems excited at the thought that Sinbad will be visiting them soon. Sinbad asks Alibaba what their next move is. Alibaba replies that they need to establish a temporary government and gather representatives from the people to form a council. Barkak mentions that the public will want to see Ahmad executed, but Alibaba counters that won't happen because they're going to rewrite their penal codes. He encourages everyone to work together to rebuild Balbad, brick by brick. The bankers chime in, saying that countries that practice democracy usually end up failing because someone will always rise and seek power. A guard informs Alibaba that the people are anxious to know what will happen next. Alibaba announces to the people that Ahmad has abdicated the throne, but no one will succeed him because they plan to become a republic. Dark Rook radiates from the banker and empowers the arms dealer, while at the same moment, a bright rook shines from Aladdin and transforms into a large bird. Alibaba continues to inspire and motivate the people in their effort to form a republic. He urges them to work together because, no matter what challenges they face, they're known to be resilient. The people cheer happily. Alibaba promises himself not to leave Balbad just yet, putting his adventurous plans with Aladdin on hold. The arms dealer sends out dark rooks as Kasim and his gang move toward the palace to launch their attack. Just as the crowd was celebrating, Alibaba noticed Kasim and his gang moving toward the palace through the throngs of people. Someone approached Kasim to tell him that the country no longer had a king, and Alibaba had declared it a people's republic. Kasim observed the joy and excitement of the crowd and realized Alibaba had found a way to thwart his plans. He headed toward the palace, protesting against this new solution. He spoke to the people with rage, reminding them that the country was built with their sweat and blood. He recalled the heavy taxes imposed by the former government, which led to the starvation of their families. He argued that the monarchy should be held accountable for its crimes, even if it no longer existed. One of his gang members used her powers on the crowd, and they began to side with Kasim, joining him in his anger and protests. Kasim urged the people to stand against the royalty, nobles, and military for their wrongs. The people agreed. The arms dealer was pleased and mentioned that he would profit from providing them with metal vessels from the situation. Alibaba and others were shocked by the people's response. Jafar called out Aladdin's name, and they wondered if he was dead. Aladdin found himself in a temple, hearing someone call for him. He spotted Ugo's head and asked if he was dead. Ugo informed him that his physical body was still alive on the surface, but only his consciousness was present there. Meanwhile, on the surface, the arms dealer stole the rook of the banker and covered the land and skies with it. Kasim ordered the people to eliminate everyone in the palace, along with every noble and influential person in town. Ugo informed Aladdin that there were people on the surface trying to alter the flow of fate. He explained how the flow of fate worked, using Aladdin's encounters with various jinns and their masters as an example. He cautioned that messing with this flow would lead to chaos and darkness. Ugo mentioned that Aladdin should have died when he faced Judal, who had surrounded himself with dark powers, and that was why Ugo had protected him, exhausting all the Magoi left in him. He noted that the reason the Magoi he tried giving Aladdin didn't work was because he wasn't Aladdin's jinn. Ugo showed Aladdin what was happening on the surface and urged him to return and set the flow of fate right through a miracle. However, to fulfill his mission, Aladdin needed to visit his master, the great King Solomon, to learn about fate and gain wisdom. Ugo bid farewell, saying they would never meet again, and lifted Aladdin through the gates. Aladdin was unsure of his surroundings, but heard a voice telling him to embark on a journey through the world's truths and be reborn. Jafar and Masrur left Aladdin with a woman to go help at the palace. The people attacked the guards, beginning to take them down. Deputy King Sabmad was pressured to order the guards to fight. He asked Alibaba what they should do. Alibaba ordered that half the military should defend the gate while he led the rest to confront Kasim. Kasim and his gang approached the palace but were stopped by Alibaba, who surrounded them with flames. He demanded to know Kasim's reason for the bloodshed, even after he had dissolved the monarchy. Kasim claimed he never desired such violence and launched an attack on Alibaba. He dodged their attacks, but one struck him and blurred his vision. They restrained him with their weapon's power, and Kasim delivered a powerful strike. Alibaba summoned Amun's sword and broke through. He charged at them and destroyed their weapon, placing his sword against Kasim's neck, demanding he call off the attack. Kasim replied that he would rather die and urged Alibaba to strike him. Unable to do so, Alibaba pleaded with him instead. Kasim disregarded his pleas and stepped away, realizing his gang had been overpowered. He decided to summon the power of his weapon, which the arms dealer warned could have consequences. He plunged the weapon into himself and called forth its power. The other weapons merged with him, transforming him into a flying black demon. The demon starts attacking the guards, vaporizing them. The arms dealer watches and is pleased that they finally turned a jinn using dark rook. Morgiana tells Alibaba to get a grip, otherwise everyone will die. She attacks the monster, kicking it in the head and bringing it down. Morgiana urges Alibaba, who is still in shock, to use his sword. As the demon tries to strike him, Alibaba manages to sever one of its hands. Morgiana pushes him to strike again, but the demon summons Dark Rook and grows a new hand back. The arms dealer explains that as long as Dark Rook exists, the Black Jinn can regenerate endlessly, and Dark Rook is born from human hatred and bitterness. The demon grows larger. Morgiana tries to attack again, but the demon uses its telekinesis to hurl her hundreds of meters away. It prepares to launch a massive strike against the former ruler and his deputy. Alibaba charges at it, and Sinbad jumps in, pressing his hand into the demon's head. He urges Alibaba to finish it off before the demon wipes out everyone involved in the monarchy and starts a bloody revolution. The demon puts its fingers into Sinbad's body, but Sinbad keeps insisting that Alibaba needs to kill it and establish a bloodless revolution instead. Alibaba powers up his weapon and charges at the demon in anger. He thrusts his weapon into the demon, but the dark rook on its body prevents him from penetrating. Calling on Amon's power, he pushes harder, but suddenly sees Kasim tied up at the demon's core and loses control. The demon tosses Sinbad aside. Sinbad realizes the demon has run out of Magoi, so he tells Alibaba to pour all his power into one strike. Alibaba attempts to power up but keeps failing. Meanwhile, the military decides to step in and attack the monster. Seeing this, Alibaba resolves to get himself together, powering up his weapon with Sinbad's help. He charges the monster with all his strength, but Judel stops him and knocks him to the ground. Judel wants to know why the arms dealer is so intent on killing Alibaba. The arms dealer apologizes for interrupting Judel during his recovery, explaining that Alibaba has been interfering with the flow he is trying to create and has become a nuisance. Alibaba ponders how to stop them, noting that his Jin equipment has been ineffective and he barely has any Mogwai left. Jafar and Masra help the townspeople as they come under attack. Masra suggests going to the palace, but Jafar insists they need to help the people first. The thieves search for Sinbad to return the metal vessel they stole from him. Just when all hope seems lost, Jafar spots a bright light moving toward them. It turns out to be Aladdin riding toward them. The arms dealer tells Judel that he can make the black djinn his own by connecting to it. He connects with the demon, gaining control. Judel restrains Sinbad and promises not to kill him, turning to Alibaba to say that he is about to lose his life. Judel transforms the demon into a large monster, commanding it to launch multiple strikes at them. Morgiana saves Alibaba, urging him to run for their lives. He asks her to throw him so he can strike Judel and the monster, as he has gathered all his strength in Mogwai. Morgiana warns it might kill him, but he persuades her. She throws him at Judel, and Alibaba tries to hit them, but Judel easily deflects him, sending him crashing to the ground. The demon strikes at Alibaba, who blocks it with Amon's sword, which shatters in the process. He orders Morgiana to throw him up again, but he gets repelled once more. Aladdin arrives and offers to be Alibaba's source of strength. Judal instructs Aladdin to call forth his djinn, since he now possesses his djinn and won't lose again. Aladdin explains that Ugo is no longer with him, but has left him his power. Aladdin uses the white rook to create a giant in the shape of Ugo. The black djinn charges at Aladdin, who vaporizes it. Aladdin tells Morgiana to get Sinbad into the city, as there are people he needs to see. Aladdin's strike seems to have no effect on Judel. He admits he can't go toe-to-toe with Judel because his powers are incomplete. Aladdin asks Alibaba to share his powers, but Alibaba replies that he has lost his sword and has no magic left. Aladdin tells him to look around as he sends out the white rook, restoring the people's senses. He tells Alibaba that the people's spirit is what will give them the power to fight. Alibaba calls upon Solomon's wisdom. Aladdin tells Alibaba that the only way to free his friend Kasim is by breaking through the darkness of the black djinn with his sword. Alibaba replies that the sword is gone. Aladdin then reforges the sword with his heat magic. Alibaba charges at the demon, dodging every ice spear Judel throws at him. He hits the demon, but it doesn't work, and he gets pulled into the demon's stomach. Aladdin messes with Judel's mind, showing him memories from his past, which torments him, causing him to fall to the ground. Inside the black djinn, Alibaba hears Aladdin's voice urging him to free Kasim from the darkness as he fights. Kasim tells Alibaba to stay away because he has always disliked him, even when they were kids. He says he hopes Alibaba crumbles. He continues, saying Aladdin is perfect and is surrounded by light everywhere he goes, unlike him, who was born trash. Aladdin keeps Judel at bay on the surface, encouraging Alibaba not to let Kasim's words hurt him. Kasim hurls insults at Alibaba, claiming he has royal blood and a kind mother, while Kasim has the blood of a worthless father. He uses dark rooks to restrain Alibaba, and complains that it's unfair they're fated to their social statuses from birth, disgusted by Alibaba's perfection. Aladdin retaliates by hitting Kasim in the face, yelling that what he says isn't true, as he's not as perfect as he pretends to be, and has done terrible things too, living a miserable life. He warns Kasim not to fabricate lies about his life to justify his own. They engage in battle, trading blows and words. Kasim gains the upper hand and knocks Alibaba to the ground. He tells him that one's destiny and social status are determined at birth. Kasim shows Alibaba memories of their slum when he lost his mother, when he lost his sister Mariam, and when the slum was burned down. Alibaba sees how the arms dealer offered to help start a revolution in their country. Kasim creates a weapon with the dark rooks, yelling that anyone should be able to achieve greatness, and he thrusts his weapon into Alibaba. Alibaba tears up, blaming himself for not realizing Kasim felt this way. Or maybe he did, but ran from the reality that they were different. He hopes they can find a way to be happy together. His tears emit white rooks that flow into Kasim, bringing him back to his senses. Kasim realizes he should have accepted his fate and lived happily with their differences because he can never be the same as Alibaba, no matter how hard he tries. He starts to cry, and a drop of his tears falls to the ground, which causes the black djinn to begin breaking apart. Kasim bids farewell to Alibaba, saying his time is up. Alibaba tells him he came to save him, but Kasim replies he has done enough and starts to float toward a door. He remembers eliminating his father and how he called him a street trash like himself. The only one who stood by him was Alibaba. Alibaba tries to hold him back, but Kasim explodes into White Rook and vanishes. The White Rook drives the Dark Rook away, filling the sky. The arms dealer takes Judel and leaves, telling Aladdin they'll meet again. Alibaba weeps for his friend, who lies dead in his arms. The arms dealer vows to engulf Aladdin, Alibaba, and everyone else in darkness. At that moment, Sinbad and his men, who have regained their metal vessels, attack him, and Sinbad completely vaporizes the arms dealer with his powerful sword. Sinbad feels weak afterward. Some mysterious entities hold a meeting to discuss what to do about Aladdin and Alibaba joining forces with the great King Solomon. They advise that they must be brave and face King Solomon, just as they did centuries ago. They all vow to continue to create darkness on the planet. Alibaba cries for his dead friend and apologizes for not saving him. Aladdin comes and explains that those who die don't really disappear, but instead join the great flow of the Roop. Aladdin calls upon Solomon's wisdom and shows Alibaba his parents. He explains that, although it's sad when people die, it's not a final goodbye. They are still watching over loved ones and their journeys. Aladdin transforms the Rook back into people and sends them to reunite with their loved ones. Everyone starts to rebuild the city. Morgiana helps provide food for the workers and citizens. Alibaba holds a meeting with the people's representative to discuss the next steps in starting their republic and to teach them what a republic means. Alibaba and Aladdin both watch the rebuilding happening in the city when Alibaba gets bitten by a snake. A guard rushes in, throws the snake off him, and assures him the snake isn't poisonous. Just then, another guard rushes in to inform him that a huge fleet from the Ku Empire has been spotted offshore. Alibaba is puzzled about why they've come. Sinbad tells him it's likely they think the rebellion is still ongoing and want to take control of Balbad. If they claim Balbad is still in an anarchic state, it will be hard to argue against them. Sinbad advises Alibaba to leave the city, as the Ku Empire will undoubtedly want to take charge and turn the kings into their puppets or execute them to make a point. Alibaba disagrees and insists he can't abandon the city, promising Kasim and everyone who lost their lives that he'd rather stay and fight. Sinbad secretly knocks him out, and Alibaba passes out. When Alibaba wakes up, he finds himself on a boat. He notices that the city they're headed to isn't Balbad. Jafar tells him they are going to Sindria, and that King Sinbad has decided to travel to the Ku Empire to use his influence as the leader of the Seven Sea Alliance to handle negotiations. Alibaba falls to his knees and starts to cry. Masrur and Morgiana are training against each other when they hear an alarm indicating Sinbad's return. Sinbad thanks Jafar for managing the country while he was away and asks about Alibaba and his friends. He tells Jafar to call them so he can report on his talks with the Ku Empire. Sinbad then reports that the Ku Empire has decided to place Balbad under its rule, but will respect their right to become a republic and won't force them into slavery. Alibaba thanks Sinbad, saying he couldn't have handled it better. Sinbad asks him what his next plan is, and Alibaba replies that he'll quietly support Balbad from outside. Sinbad warns against this because the Ku Empire has its eyes on him. Sinbad reminds him that he once talked about the world's abnormalities, the constant wars, and the extreme poverty. He explains that these aren't coincidences, but are orchestrated by an organization called Al-Thaman. He mentions that the banker who caused chaos in Balbad's economy, the arms dealer, and Judal are all members of Al-Thaman. He continues, saying they have been fighting Al-Thaman for a long time. He urges Alibaba and Aladdin to help and offer their powers in this fight. If they agree, Sinbad will help them gain the power they need to fight since their powers are still incomplete. He promises to bring in a powerful magician and a skilled swordsman to train them. A guard rushes in to inform Sinbad that a sea creature has been spotted off their shore. Sinbad urges them to agree as he leaves to address the situation. The creature destroys a building, but everyone seems excited to watch the hunt. Sinbad and his 8 generals arrive on the scene. Sinbad orders 2 of the generals, Yamraiha and Sharkan, to take care of the creature. The creature shoots water at Yamraiha, but she deflects it and uses the water to restrain it instead. Sharkan cuts off the creature's head, debones it, and slices it into several pieces. Sinbad introduces Yamraiha to Aladdin as her new teacher. Sharkan joins them, and Sinbad introduces him as Alibaba's new teacher. He hugs Alibaba and tells him he has a great future ahead. Yamraiha and Sharkan tease each other, but Sinbad tells them to save their competition for next time. Later that night, the people of Sindria celebrate a grand festival called the Maharagan. Alibaba says Sinbad is amazing for turning such a distant island into a great country in just 1 generation. Aladdin and Alibaba admire the ladies, and one of them gives Alibaba flowers. He realizes it's Morgiana and compliments her, making her blush. Alibaba, Aladdin, and Morgiana meet Sinbad, who is surrounded by beautiful ladies. Sinbad introduces introduces them to his 8 generals, starting with Masrur and Jafar, who they've already met. He introduces Hinahoho, who looks like a giant, Drakon, who resembles a dragon, Yemraiha, Sharkan, Pisti, who looks like a kid, and Spartos. He informs Alibaba that one of the princes from the Ku Empire is coming to study in Sindria. Some of Sinbad's generals tease him to find a wife and start a family, but he replies that his citizens are his family. Morgiana and Aladdin marvel at the country's beauty. Alibaba asks Morgiana why she decided to come with them to Sindria instead of traveling to her homeland on the Dark Continent. She replies that she has heard about the Althaman and has decided to fight with them until the end because she owes them a lot. She kneels and begs them to let her fight alongside them. Aladdin tells her she is free to do what she wants and doesn't need anyone's permission, and Alibaba agrees. Aladdin says they are glad to have Morgiana on their side, comparing it to having the strength of 100 people. They are amazed to see her dancing so radiantly. Alibaba calls out to her, saying she looks beautiful. He tells Aladdin he never wants what happened to Qasim to happen to anyone else. Aladdin promises he'll fight the Althaman with him as fireworks light up the sky. Alibaba starts his training with Yamraiha. He shows her what he can do, but she says she's not impressed. She explains the capabilities of magic and demonstrates by making herself invisible. She describes how the invisibility works, and explains how to give commands to the Rooks to perform different types of magic. She mentions that someone with unlimited magoi, like him, can achieve great magic. Alibaba struggles with his sword practice. Sharkan suggests he switch swords, but Alibaba insists on using his current one because it's similar to his jinn-equipped sword. Sharkan asks how he plans to summon the jinn using his broken metal vessel. Sinbad arrives and tells Alibaba to come with him to address the issue with his broken vessel. Sinbad explains that the knife is now useless, and he'll need to find a new metal vessel to transfer his jinn into. He adds that the new vessel should be something he has a strong emotional connection to. Alibaba shares that he received his now broken knife the day his father visited him after he succeeded in a trade negotiation. Sinbad offers him a new knife, one gifted to him by Alibaba's father when he was feeling down. Alibaba accepts the knife, and instantly, his jinn transfers from the broken vessel to the new one. Sinbad comments that the quick transfer means his father is guiding him. Sinbad also encourages Morgiana to choose any metal vessel from his collection. He tells her that people who fight alongside a king candidate receive Magoi and a jinn's blessing, but she'll need a vessel to hold that power. Alibaba jokes that she should pick a metal glove because it would look good on her. She mentions she has something she'd love to use and reveals her old shackles, explaining they're an important item in her life, and she'd prefer to use that. Jafar and Masrur interrupt to inform Sinbad that the delegation from the Ku Empire has arrived. Sinbad and the 8 generals wait to greet the delegates. The prince steps off the boat and introduces himself as Hakuryu Ren, the 4th prince of the Ku Empire. Sinbad expresses his honor at having him and asks who the person behind him is. He's shocked to realize it's Princess Kujioku Ren. The princess says she's happy to see him again. Jafar notices their casual exchange and concludes that nothing happened between them during Sinbad's visit to the Ku Empire. Sinbad mentions that he didn't see her during that visit, which causes a strong reaction from the princess. She draws her sword and accuses him of taking advantage of her when he visited. Jafar looks shocked and asks Sinbad what he did. The princess starts to cry, and her assistant explains that on the last day of Sinbad's visit, the princess found him unclothed next to her in bed. Sinbad wonders how to calm the situation down. The princess challenges him to a duel, warning that if he refuses, she'll eliminate both of them. Sinbad tries to recall what happened, but his memory fails him. Jafar warns him that this situation could lead to war. One of his generals who was with him announced that Sinbad wasn't drunk that day, and they made sure he went to bed after the party. The princess asks him why she was in his room and why he was naked. He replies that he doesn't remember that, but he can confirm he sometimes sleeps naked. The princess shares her side of the story, saying that someone hit her, she lost consciousness, and then found herself in his room the next day. Sinbad is shocked to see that his generals believe the princess. They all agree that he's capable of that when he's drunk, and that they've heard complaints from the women in the city about him. He tries to remind them of the trust they've built over the years, but it's no use. The princess's assistant suggests that he marry her as the only way to preserve her honor. The generals ask Sinbad what his decision will be, but he disagrees and asks Yamraiha to use her powers to show them what really happened that day. They all watch and discover that nothing happened between them. They only slept through the night. The assistant claims the magic is suspicious and urges Sinbad to confess his crime and marry her. The princess apologizes for her reaction. The assistant, named Gotoubun, thinks about the real story. He knocked the princess unconscious, and with her guards, laid her next to King Sinbad. He explains his plan to be a guardian of her child from her marriage to King Ahmad and control him from the shadows, but that didn't work out. Now he plans to do the same with King Sinbad. He insists that King Sinbad must take responsibility responsibility and marry the princess. But the guards confess that he orchestrated everything, and they helped him. Sinbad's guards try to arrest him for deceiving the king. He draws his sword to resist them, but Prince Hakuryu stops him and apologizes for the behavior of his travelers. The princess forgives Gotoubun and hugs him. Jafar asks Sinbad if it's right to forgive them and let them into the kingdom. Sinbad replies that the prince wouldn't want to go back without completing his mission. The prince informs King Sinbad that there are forces in the Ku Empire trying to attack Sindria. King Sinbad asks why he chose to tell him this and what his goal is. The prince reveals that his goal is to destroy the Ku Empire. The prince asks Sinbad to lend him his power in the fight against the Ku Empire. Sinbad replies that the prince should first learn about his city. The prince insists he has no time for that, but Sinbad insists he needs to gain some knowledge before they can continue their talks. Sinbad suggests he should meet Alibaba. Sharkin takes Alibaba to a pleasure house and introduces him to the girls there as a prince. He asks Alibaba what he thinks of Prince Hakuryu Ren and adds that he'd like to have a match with him to see who is better at swordplay. A strange-looking girl enters and offers her services to Alibaba. Meanwhile, Aladdin and Yamraiha continue their magic training. Aladdin shows off the protective magic he learned, and Yamraiha shows water magic, urging Aladdin to learn how to make his magic more offensive. Alibaba practices his swordplay with Sharkan, who criticizes him for having terrible technique and tells him his sword fighting style doesn't suit his jinn-equipped weapon. He suggests there's a better way to do it. After his training session, Aladdin comforts Alibaba. He shares that he also struggles under Yamraiha, but he's learning a lot. Morgiana shows them a remodel of her shackles, which she's now made into anklets. She tries them on, but accidentally tangles Alibaba and Aladdin in them. She apologizes, and Alibaba suggests she take off the chain. Morgiana contemplates how she'll use the anklets in battle, and Aladdin advises her to figure out their purpose first. She expresses her desire to gain strength to help both of them. They tell her she already helps them a lot, and when she's around, they feel like they have wings. The prince and princess interrupt them. The prince mentions that Sinbad has requested he accompany them and learn from them. He thanks Aladdin for helping Princess Hakwe back at the Kuga Plains. The princess suggests they let go of the past in Balbad and call a truce. Aladdin agrees and offers to shake her hand. They lock hands but then start arguing. Alibaba apologizes for them, explaining they have a history from Balbad. The prince asks Alibaba if he holds any hatred against him since he's the prince of the country that occupied his home. Alibaba hears voices in his head tell him to dislike and harm the prince. He collapses in pain as strange marks appear on his arm. Sinbad enters to check on Alibaba, who is lying on the bed. A strange man materializes from the mark on Alibaba's arm and floats in the air. Sinbad unsheathes his sword and cuts the man in half, with blood splattering on him. The strange man curses Sinbad to death and tells Aladdin to surrender because the curse will gradually turn all his Mogoi to black, leading him to depravity. He warns Aladdin against fighting the curse, or the white and black Rook will destroy each other within him, killing his body. The man states he will wait for them in the darkness of depravity before vanishing. Yamraiha explains that it's a complex magic that only the caster can remove. Sinbad mentions there's a way to lift the curse, but they'll need to travel far south to an island with the 61st dungeon. If they conquer the dungeon, the jinn there can lift any curse and heal any sickness. He tells them he can't join them because he's already conquered his 7th dungeon and reached his limit. The prince offers to go with them and help. Sinbad warns him of the dangers, but the prince replies he's always wanted the chance to clear a dungeon. Sinbad agrees to let him join. Alibaba blames himself for what happened to Sinbad, but Pisti reassures him that Sinbad will be okay because Yamraiha has used her magic to stop the curse from spreading for 10 days. A sea monster attacks them, but Pisti swoops in on a bird, calms the monster, and sends it back to the ocean. Aladdin thanks her for her help and insists on calling her Miss since she's older than Alibaba. The servants announce that the food is ready. Prince Hakuryu tells them he made the meal to thank them for being kind to him. Alibaba remembers that Sinbad told him to learn to overcome the voice in his head and to forgive him. Jafar tells Sinbad he should have avoided the curse, but Sinbad replies that it will motivate them more if he's also cursed while he changes his bandages. They arrive at the island and meet the Tauran people. A little girl approaches them and begs them to take her to the dungeon because she wants to save her parents. Pisti informs them that the dungeon pulls anyone who gets close into it, and they never come out alive, which is why the islanders stay away. The prince promises to help her find her parents and vows to defeat everything in the monster if he finds them already dead. As they paddle closer to the dungeon, Morgiana wears her modified shackles as bracelets. The dungeon sends out glowing ropes that bind them and pull them in. They all find themselves inside the dungeon. They notice a big tree with multiple doors in it. They decide to open the doors one by one until they find the one that leads to the treasure room. They open the first door and find talking turtles who are nibbling on their thumbs. In the other doors, they encounter various talking creatures, some friendly, some hostile. While they chase the hostile ones off, Morgiana discovers a door that leads deeper into the dungeon. They pass through the door and come across a very large bear who asks if they could give him some honey. Aladdin replies that they don't have any, which infuriates the bear, and it attacks them. Prince Hakuryu freezes in fear and almost gets taken out by the bear, but Morgiana intervenes, kicking the bear's leg multiple times and sending it crashing to the ground. Alibaba slashes the bear's chest open with his sword, and Aladdin unleashes his heat magic on it. The bear deflates and runs off. Alibaba advises the prince not to let his guard down next time. The prince promises he won't freeze again and will be ready. They open the next door and find themselves in an orchard where humans are stuck in the trees. Zagan introduces himself and welcomes them to his dungeon. He explains that the people stuck in the trees are from the town. The djinn reveals that he feeds his dungeon's creatures with humans. They all stare in disgust. The prince tries to free a woman from the trees, but fails because only magic can save them. The djinn expresses his hatred for humans and says he'd rather live in the dungeon forever. He shows them he has captured the little girl, and the only way to save her is to reach the treasure room. Aladdin assures the prince that they will rescue her and the people of Toran, and make the djinn lift the curse on him and Sinbad. They enter a room and realize they have to jump on boxes to get to the other side, but there are dungeon creatures on the boxes. The djinn turns the creatures hostile to stop them from crossing. The prince attacks them and nearly falls, but Morgiana saves him. Alibaba powers up his sword and attacks, but the creatures prove stubborn. Aladdin launches fireballs at them, taking them out. Alibaba charges at a giant creature and slashes it. They all make it to the other side safely. The prince asks them not to save him next time he's in trouble because he's a prince and can't rely on others. The djinn appears and agrees, saying that saving him makes the challenge boring. He informs them that for their next challenge, he will split them into pairs. Morgiana and the prince find themselves in an unfamiliar room facing giant knights made of rock. Morgiana kicks one, but her powerful legs have no effect. The djinn tells them that the knights are super strong and can only be destroyed with magic. The prince channels his powers into his weapon and slashes the first knight. The djinn summons more knights to attack them and asks how the prince plans to keep up. In another room, Alibaba takes out all the knights with Ayman's sword. He asks Aladdin what he thinks of Prince Hakuryu since he seems to want to take on all the responsibility. Aladdin questions if he hates the prince, to which Alibaba disagrees, saying he just doesn't understand him. Aladdin suggests they leave and help Morgiana and the prince in their room. The knights seem to have the upper hand over the prince, who is bleeding from his eyes. Morgiana helps him take down one of the knights and begs him to retreat. The prince responds that he'd rather die than be saved by others. He insists that capturing the dungeon is crucial to fulfilling his destiny and doesn't want her to get involved. Morgiana disagrees and tells him that there are people who love him and are waiting for his return, so she will help him for their sake. To the djinn's surprise, Morgiana lifts one of the knights and smashes him against the wall. She urges the prince to leave with her, but he passes out. The prince dreams of a strange man telling him to always keep fighting, and his mother encouraging him to stay strong. Alibaba and the others wake him up, explaining that he fainted and Morgiana had to carry him out. He grabs his weapon and gets ready to leave. The djinn interrupts them, saying he's impressed they overcame his challenge. He tells them that the prince is holding them back and has been nothing but a burden. Hearing this, the prince bursts into tears and admits the djinn is right. Amidst his tears, he calls himself useless and lashes out at his friends when they try to console him. The prince insists they leave him behind and continue without him. Aladdin tells him to stop being a crybaby. He acknowledges that the prince has a lot on his plate, but that should motivate him to survive, even if it means depending on them for help. The prince places his weapon against Alibaba's neck and angrily tells him to stop pretending he doesn't dislike him. He points out that unlike him, Alibaba hasn't achieved anything and wouldn't mind going it alone to complete his mission. Alibaba shares that he used to be like him, and his decision not to ask for help back in Balbad led to his friend Kasim's death. He blames himself and starts to cry. Prince Hakuryu is surprised by Alibaba's reaction and realizes he misjudged him. He confesses he's been saved too many times by his family but knows he can't stay weak forever. He kneels and asks Alibaba to let him fight alongside him from that moment on. Alibaba agrees, offers him his hand, and suggests they conquer the dungeon together. Judel floats over Sindria, smirking as he looks down at the country. Alibaba and the others step into a peculiar area of the dungeon. Morgiana senses a heavy presence in the air, and Aladdin agrees that there are many things in the room. They hear the djinn singing and notice a pack of hostile wolves ready to attack. Alibaba tells them that Zagan the djinn is desperate and they should exploit that desperation. They all charge at the wolves. Yamraiha watches their movements in the dungeon using her water magic and reports back to Sinbad. Jafar expresses his relief that Alibaba and Hakuryu have finally found common ground. Suddenly, the water figures disappear, and the barrier Yamraiha placed around Sindria is broken. They hurry outside and find that Judel has entered the city. Jafar orders the guards to raise the alarm and prepare for a battle with Judel. Jafar attacks Judal, but he easily deflects it and sends Jafar crashing into the walls with his powers. Sinbad arrives and asks Judal what he wants, but Judal instead jokes about his face. Sinbad tells him to stop joking around and get to the point. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Alibaba and the others eliminate the wolves blocking their path. Morgiana is happy that the prince and Alibaba can finally work together as she continues fighting. Alibaba warns her not to take on too many wolves, but she responds that she enjoys fighting alongside them. Back in Sindria, Judal asks Sinbad what he thinks about Aladdin. He claims that there shouldn't be another magi in the world since there can only be 3 at once unless one dies, and there haven't been any reports of the other 2 dying. He mentions that Aladdin has a power even he doesn't understand, and the Althaman organization is after it. Judal asks Sinbad what his plans are for Aladdin, but Sinbad says it's none of his business. Judal insists he wants to team up with Sinbad, but Sinbad refuses, reminding him that he's part of the Althaman organization and recalling what they did to them in Partavia. Judal pleads with Sinbad, claiming he is a victim of the organization and tells his story about being taken as a baby and made into their magi, despite just wanting to live a normal life. He breaks down in tears but soon shifts to laughter, saying Sinbad has a good heart and almost believed him. Judal asserts that while his story is true, he doesn't care and will continue doing what he wants. He informs Sinbad that the main reason he came was to advise him that the organization is unhappy about him involving the Magi and Alibaba in his fight against them, and that they have decided to bring war to Sindria. He adds that they've also sent people after Alibaba and the others in the Zagan dungeon. In the dungeon, Alibaba shouts at the Jinn to free the people he's trapped, but the Jinn refuses. Aladdin fires fireballs at him, but the Jinn deflects them and gets singed a bit. Aladdin demands he show his true form, insisting he isn't a real Jinn. The Jinn admits he's just a dungeon created by Zagan, the real Jinn, to guard it. Alibaba yells at him, asking why he's kidnapped the villagers, and tells him to let them go immediately. The Jinn claims it's just a prank. Furious, Alibaba charges at him and cuts off his head. The Jinn instantly regenerates and creates multiple copies of himself. The copies attack and send Alibaba and Aladdin down a very deep pit. Aladdin tries to save them with his flying turban to stop them from hitting the bottom, but the turban gets destroyed. Morgiana is unsure of what to do. Her bracelet powers up, wrapping around her friends, while the other one secures itself to the wall to catch them from falling. She climbs back up, drops her friends, and jumps back down the pit to take out the Jinn's clone that's tormenting them. She dodges everything thrown her way, unsure how to attack the monster. A flash of light in the shape of a bird emerges from her chains, gives her strength, and she scorches the pit monster. This affects the Jinn and his copies on the surface, leading to their destruction. Morgiana seems pleased that she defeated the monster, but she starts bleeding from her eyes and collapses. Her friends call to her from above, but there's no reply. They climb down and find her weakly lying on the floor. Aladdin tells them she used a lot of her magoi to perform that attack. The prince warns that using so much magoi could cost her life. The little girl rushes to the prince and hugs him while crying. Alibaba urges them to move to the treasure room to get help. Alibaba opens the treasure room, and they all enter. They notice the room feels odd. A monster serpent attacks them, carrying the arms dealer and 2 others. Alibaba declares he won't allow them to take the dungeon, but the dealer responds that the dungeon is a mere bonus, as they came for Aladdin's power and Alibaba's life to offer to their master. Alibaba says he won't let them carry out their mission. Aladdin tells Prince Harkuryu to take Morgiana and the child to a safe place while he holds off the monster. Alibaba draws his sword as he and Aladdin prepare to fight. The prince reassures the little girl that Aladdin and Alibaba will be okay while they find a hiding spot. A woman with the arms dealer thinks she has defeated Aladdin but is shocked to see him fly back. She climbs down from the serpent and introduces herself as Princess Dunya from Mustasim. She introduces her knight, Isaac. She questions Alibaba how he can live with himself after letting his home country be overrun and destroyed. Alibaba responds that Balbad is a republic and doing just fine. She claims that Alibaba being alive is a mistake, and she has come to correct it by taking his life with a dark metal vessel. The arms dealer, whose real name is Master Ithnan, explains that the dark metal vessel was made from black rooks by the organization. The princess tells her companion not to interfere. She shoves the weapon into her body, transforming into a black djinn. This brings back memories of Qasim for Alibaba, and he looks bewildered. The black djinn attacks them. Aladdin blocks her strike and yells at Alibaba to snap out of it since that's not his friend. Alibaba charges at the black djinn, but Isaac stops him, and they start fighting. Aladdin fires fireballs at the black djinn. Meanwhile, Prince Harkuryu and the girl find a door. Back in Sindria, Judal teases Sinbad that he wants to join forces and take over the world together, but it would be more fun right now to take out someone as powerful as him. Sinbad says he would love to see him try, and Judal replies that his current job is to break the barrier protecting Sindria, which he has already done. He warns Sinbad not to lose his life when the organization attacks, but waits for their attack alongside the Ku Empire. He informs informs him that the Ku Empire is now stronger than ever, with 5 dungeon capturers: Princess Hakui Ren, Princess Kujioku Ren, and Princess Kuha Ren, Kume Ren, and Kuen Ren. He adds that Kuen Ren is the best among them, and they will destroy Syndria together. Princess Kujioku appears and asks what he means by destroying Syndria. He tells her they are going to war, and the organization will soon attack Syndria. He urges her to come back with him so he can make her a general, but she ignores him. Judel flies off. Sinbad orders Jafar to gather the 8th generals for an emergency war meeting. Yamaraiha reports that it will take 10 days to repair the country's barrier, even with the help of other magicians. Sinbad orders that the barrier should remain as it is, and Yamaraiha and the other magicians should join the combat forces instead. He says he'd rather fight his way through than just sit back and defend. He asks his generals if they will help him, noting that he is still cursed and they might have to work harder than usual. They kneel and vow to stand by him. There's a buzz in the town as everyone gets ready for battle. Princess Kujoku asks to speak with King Sinbad. She pleads for Judel, saying they don't want to go to war since they have a friendship treaty. Sinbad tells her that the ones bringing the war are the Althaman organization. He urges her to leave because she won't be safe in the city when they attack. She refuses and offers to help as the dungeon capturer that she is. Sinbad says she can stay in the country for as long as she wants. At Zagan's dungeon, the fight continues with Aladdin holding off the Black Djinn while Isaac proves too quick for Alibaba. When they realize their opponents are gaining the upper hand, they decide to come up with a new strategy. Alibaba shrinks his weapon and Aladdin fires smaller blasts of Magoi at the Black Djinn. Alibaba slices through his opponent's hands and legs. Aladdin tires out his opponent with the Magoi blasts and pins her to the wall. Just as they're about to finish their opponents, Ithnan interrupts by launching his powers at them. He turns Dunya into a full-body Black Djinn outfit. Dunya grows stronger and charges at Aladdin and Alibaba, restraining Aladdin with chains, but Alibaba breaks them. Isaac wakes up, his limbs resetting, and he becomes more powerful, attacking with explosive speed. Prince Hakuryu arrives to help and tells them Dunya has captured Morgiana in the treasure room. Aladdin devises a plan to stall until their opponents run out of Magoi, then they'll strike. Ithnan interrupts, showing that their forces are about to invade Syndria and start a war. He blames Alibaba for coming to the city, claiming he only brings death and chaos wherever he goes. The prince tells Alibaba to ignore him, explaining that the organization has always intended to attack Syndria. Ithnan expresses a desire to capture the prince because he's Judel's favorite. Dunya disagrees, declaring she'll wipe them all out with her extreme magic. She summons her extreme magic, creating a wave of black rooks and a symbol in the sky. The Althaman forces prepare to invade Syndria. Sinbad gives his troops a motivational speech to get ready for war. Jafar informs Sinbad in the war room that the army has mobilized and the generals are taking their positions for the attack. The army launches arrows at the invading forces, and the commanders of the invading faction confront the generals in preparation for battle. Dunya is ready to eliminate Alibaba, Aladdin, and Hakuryu in the dungeon. Aladdin tells his friends that Dunya is set to unleash a devastating attack when her Jinn equip is at its peak, but he intends to stop her. He sends fireballs in her direction, but Isaac blocks them. Master Ithnan instructs Isaac to protect Dunya until she's ready to attack. Alibaba and Hakuryu decide to take on Isaac while Aladdin attempts to stop Dunya. They charge at Isaac with fury while Aladdin hurls steam balls at him. Ithnan is surprised to see Aladdin also wielding water magic. Isaac evades their assaults like the wind. Frustration builds in Alibaba as he struggles to hit him. He questions his repeated failures and how he has let down Sinbad and Syndria, throwing hit after hit at Isaac, none connecting. Isaac gets the upper hand and tries to strike him. Hakuryu jumps in front to protect Alibaba, but loses his hand in the process. Dunya completes her extreme magic and launches a deadly wave of thousands of swords at them. Back in Syndria, the generals engage in battle with Althaman forces. One of the invading commanders faces Shar Khan, equipping himself with a dark metal vessel and overpowering Shar Khan. Masra holds off his opponent well. The Althaman commanders use their dark metal vessels to gain an advantage over the generals. Pisti employs her powers to control some sea creatures to attack the looming black mass encroaching on the city. As soon as the creatures attack, they're swallowed up. One of the commanders warns Yamraiha that once the black mass reaches the city, they're finished. Dunya transforms back to her normal appearance, believing she has triumphed. She pleads with Master Ithnan to honor their promise to help them return to their homeland. Master Ithnan calls her foolish and tells her she targeted the wrong person. Aladdin attacks Isaac from behind. Dunya is shocked to see that Aladdin was her target. Aladdin explains he used water magic to bend light, tricking her into thinking he was the one she aimed at. Dunya orders Isaac to attack them, but he's already out of Magoi. Alibaba notices this and strikes him in the head, They are stunned to discover that he was just a puppet created by Dunya using sand, moved by her magnetism powers. As Isaac collapses, Dunya bursts into tears. Aladdin tells Alibaba that Al-Thaman must have manipulated and used them. When Alibaba looks into her eyes, he realizes they are mere pawns, just like Kasim. Dunya approaches them in a rage. Aladdin drops his weapon. Ithnan throws his weapon into Dunya, executing her. In Sindria, Masrur battles the giant hand commander, dodging every blow. He summons his household vessel, piercing the commander and eliminating him. Sharkin seems to have been defeated, but just before the commander can finish him off with extreme magic, Sharkin summons his household vessel and wipes out the commanding forces in one strike. With her last breath, Dunya crawls to Alibaba, saying she doesn't want to die. He rushes to her side, cradling her in his hands. He shouts at Ithnan, but at that moment, the curse spreads further on his body and a dark rook emerges from Dunya, enveloping the area. Aladdin watches as memories from her past unfold. He sees how Magnestad attacked her kingdom and wiped out everyone, and how Isaac protected her when the country's knights exterminated the royal family. This revelation makes him understand that many events in life are predetermined from birth. Dunya curses her fate. Harkuryu asks Aladdin what's happening, and he responds that she's falling from grace, which can only happen when someone curses their fate. He urges Alibaba to escape the rook before it's too late. Aladdin attempts to use his magic to help, but Ithnan strikes him down before he can succeed. Ithnan taunts Aladdin to strike him and curse him because he is responsible for all his suffering, including Kasim's death, his presence at Zagan, Morgiana's plight, and the prince losing his left arm. He tells him he represents his fate, urging him to hit him with the dark metal vessel to become completely evil. Aladdin weakly pleads with him not to give in. In a fit of anger, Alibaba drives the blade into Ithnan. Sinbad feels the impact and realizes it was all part of their plan for Alibaba to visit Zagan's dungeon, and he's been deceived. Mysterious entities greet Alibaba and declare that a new Black King has been born. Alibaba's outfit transforms to black. Prince Harkuryu asks Aladdin what happened to Alibaba. He explains that the dark force has taken him. He tries to summon Solomon's wisdom, but Alibaba strikes him before he can succeed. Aladdin says he needs to destroy the band on Alibaba's head to help him. Morgiana arrives with the little Magoi she has regained and promises to destroy the band and make him remember, even if it means using force. The black mass begins to cover part of the city. One of the dark force commanders attacks Yamraya, but she protects herself with her mist magic. The black mass tries to move toward the soldiers. Dracon blasts it with his fire breath, but it seems ineffective. He orders the soldiers to retreat inside the city. Sinbad tells Jafar that the attack is just a diversion since Aladdin and Alibaba are the real targets. Princess Kujioku interrupts and offers to help. Morgiana and the Dark Alibaba fight, but Dark Aladdin seems to have the advantage over her. Prince Harkuryu thinks of a way to help so he doesn't feel useless. He summons Zagan the Jinn, who appears and gives him a new, stronger arm. Harkuryu joins Morgiana to battle Dark Alibaba. They attack him, but he still seems to have the upper hand. They finally land a hit, and Morgiana destroys the band on Alibaba's head. Aladdin immediately uses Solomon's wisdom on him. The Black Mass tries to break through the city barrier to engulf it. The Dark Commander who faced Yamraiha sees that she has run out of Magoi, and her shield is gone. He fires his fire blasters at her, destroying some accessories on her. Yamraiha taunts him by calling him a weak dog, which angers him. He summons his extreme magic and attacks her. Yamraiha uses the Magoi and her accessories to create a shield that reflects the blast and directs it at the Black Mass, destroying half of it. The Dark Commander, furious at being tricked, charges at Yamraiha. She jumps aside, and he runs into Spartos' spear. Other generals try to destroy the Black Mass by setting it on fire. It works, but has only a minimal effect. Pisti advises them to destroy it in one hit, like Yamraiha did with her magic. Princess Kujioku flies in and uses her metal vessel to summon the ocean. She creates a massive tsunami that engulfs the Black Mass. Sinbad sees this from the war room, but says it's not over yet and orders them to prepare for transportation magic. In Alibaba's subconscious, Aladdin sees him sitting alone and swims toward him. He urges him to come along, as everyone is waiting for him. Alibaba asks Aladdin why they need to chase fate if everything is already fated. Aladdin replies that fate moves the world when it's surpassed. He reminds Alibaba that they've overcome many fates together, and despite his tough times and sad days, he always gets back up and keeps moving forward because he's a hero. He adds that Alibaba's courage has been a motivation for many people, and that's his fate. Aladdin calls him his favorite person and offers his hand. Alibaba takes his hand, and all the curse that spread across his body disappears. Aladdin tells him they need to leave because a great darkness lies ahead. Ithnan tries to escape, thinking he has captured Alibaba. Sinbad stops him and calls on his Jinn equip. Ithnan tells him that using the Jinn equip will only make the curse on him stronger. Sinbad gathers his powers powers and gets ready to strike Ithnan. He explains that the curse didn't take hold because he was already cursed. Ithnan is shocked to see Sinbad summon both the white and black root. Sinbad hits him and turns him into a vase, which he then smashes into pieces. Alibaba and Aladdin find Ithnan in Alibaba's subconscious. He urges Alibaba to stab him with his knife since his real body has been destroyed by Sinbad in the real world. Aladdin questions why he hates the world and wishes for war and poverty. Ithnan responds that fate is the prison that traps the world, and to live freely, one must fall from grace, essentially turn evil. Aladdin tells him he misunderstands fate, asserting that without it, the world won't progress and will perish like Almatoran. He shows them a vision of Almatoran, claiming that everyone faced their ends together, despite their different views on fate. He asks them to end his existence, and then attacks them. Alibaba counters the attack but spares him, saying he doesn't want to be hated anymore. Aladdin sends Ithnan's spirit to meet Solomon. A burst of white rook brightens the atmosphere in the real world. Isaac's spirit says goodbye to Dunya, and she tears up. Aladdin wakes up in the real world and thanks Kasim's spirit for holding back the curse for Alibaba before it disappears. Morgiana expresses her relief and falls into his arms. Alibaba also praises Hakuryu for conquering Zagan and helping them. On their way back, Alibaba thanks Aladdin for everything he's done. Aladdin says he's glad to have met him and become his friend. Alibaba asks how long their adventures can last. Aladdin replies that he's sure their adventures will go on forever and take them places. He tells him that during their journey, the backward flow of fate will block his path, but he will prevail and become a leader who guides the world forward. He adds that as a magi, he will always be there to lead him on the right path, and they both shake hands.